Okay, I think we're live. How's it going, everybody? I've got an echo. Let me get rid of that. Okay, that should do it. All right, no echo is good. Echo bad, no echo good. How's everybody doing today? What's my camera so high up? Why is that? Sorry, I have to make some last minute adjustments here. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our awesome farewell to summer painting that we started yesterday. Okay. If I could please first get a sound check. I guess I made my own sound check because I could hear myself in the echo. But just to make sure, if somebody could give me a sound check, that would be fantastic. Give me a second here while I figure out what's going on here. I don't see any comments just yet, so it usually takes a little bit for those to kick in. So while I am looking for those, give me a second here while I try to find them. Don't know that I will. Sometimes Facebook makes it easy. Sometimes makes it a little hard for us to pinpoint everything. So as I am looking for those, today is day 2. If you missed day 1, it was recorded and is available for you to watch whenever you're ready for it, right here on the same event page that you are on. If you're not on the event page, maybe you're watching it directly from the main feed on the Painting with Jesse page. Go up to the top of the page, click on events. There should be a link, especially if you're on a laptop or a computer, like a PC. If you go to the top, you click on the live tab or the event tab, it's going to take you right to the section where you're going to see this event. So you click on that, and then it takes you right to where the video is from yesterday. Okay, so again, day 1 was yesterday. It was recorded. If you missed that, please go back and watch that if you're interested in painting with us. Okay, so let me see. I still can't see the comments section, and that's okay. It's probably going to take a little bit. But anyway, give me a second, make one final adjustment. We're going to get going. Hopefully you guys can hear me. You know what? I should be able to see the closed captioning on the main page. So give me 1 second here while I take a sip of my coffee. Drinking a little coffee today. Had a bit of a rough night. Okay. See some comments. Lost the comments. Laura, you are in part 2. Pamela, you are in part 2. Fantastic, Michelle. Yeah, Facebook doesn't make it easy to find these videos. I don't know why, these live streams. It sometimes takes a little while. If I could somebody please give me a sound check? Let me know that you can hear. Oh, I can hear myself. Or I can see my closed captions come on. So that means Facebook is picking up my my audio, which is good. But anyway, everybody, welcome once again to day 2. Yesterday was day 1. For those of you that missed it, the video is available for you to go watch. Now, both session 1 and 2 are being recorded and will be available for at least a month for you to go back to them. Okay, so if you are interested, this is what we did yesterday. Okay, this was a blank canvas, and we've since turned it into this. Today, we're going to work just on the water, or primarily on the water, and then we're going to add in some birds, maybe make some minor adjustments to the sky. We'll see. It just depends on how much time we have today. By the way, if you're new to the page, my name is Jesse, and I'm the host and artist here on the Painting with Jesse page on Facebook, and we're also live streaming to YouTube. We're live streaming to both right now, Facebook and YouTube. Okay, as I mentioned, I'm the host and the artist, and every month I have at least one free live video session that I share with you guys in hopes to get as many people as possible to get involved with art. I think art is super therapeutic. There's lots and lots of benefits to art. One of those being that it's very therapeutic. Whether it's painting, drawing, wood carving, sculpting, etc., art is one of those things that I think if more of us did, we'd be much more relaxed, much more stress-free. Maybe not completely stress-free, but we'd be less stressful people. So anyway, I do host these events at least once a month. Sometimes it's twice a month. And so this is the one we're having this was just in August, so I didn't have anything else at the beginning of August, but I did have 1 or 2 sessions last month. So anyhow, if you are interested in staying on top of what's happening here on the Painting with Jesse page, you want to make sure that you follow the page and that you also sign up to the email list. I have a Painting with Jesse email list that anytime I'm having a special event, I email the group to let you know, hey, I'm going to be going live next week, or it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks, what have you. Usually I provide a free stencil that goes with the painting, so I send that out as well to the email list. And so anyway, you want to be a part of that. The list is in the description of the video. If you click on the description, you should see a link towards the bottom. Click on that, sign up for the email list. If you sign up using the link that's in this video, you're also going to get a free download fact sheet and stencil for today's painting. Okay, we're going to get started here in 5 minutes or less, and I'll go do a quick rundown over the supplies that we're going to be using today. All the details are also listed on the event page. If you are on the event page and you look at the about tab, you will see all the details there. Okay, just a couple of announcements. Next week, I'm not sure what day yet. I plan on teaching a session on how to create your own wet palette. Okay, if you guys are interested in that, make sure you keep your eyes out peeled for that, because I'm going to be sharing those details over the next, either later this evening or sometime tomorrow. Okay, and then on September 21st, I believe it's September 21st, I have a guest artist coming on to teach us a thing or two about one-stroke painting. Really cool technique that I know many of you would love, so also keep an eye out for that. I will be posting details on that, creating an event page, sharing that, etc., etc. And then last announcement, next month, September, my dates are September 7th, 16th through the 24th. The Painting with Jesse Art Membership Group is opening its doors to let new people in. For those of you that are on the waiting list, or for those of you that are interested, I'll be posting more details around that later this afternoon / evening. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be doing today. I've already briefly covered it. We're going to be mainly focusing on the water, creating this ocean down in here. It's a little bit choppy. So we're going to be focusing on that. The colors that I'm going to be using today primarily are primary blue, a little bit of ultramarine blue. I've got some dark green, basically hooker's green is what this is called. And then I've got some white, titanium white. That combination of colors is what's going to be used over this to create something like this. Of course, there's also going to be yellows and maybe some burnt umber that we combine with yellow to create those gold highlights in the water. Okay, so we'll talk about that briefly in a second. We're going to get right into that here in just a bit. The brushes for today. Okay, I don't know that this one's going to get much use today, probably not, but this is one of the brushes that we used a lot yesterday. 1-inch flat. I've got 2 of these guys, but doesn't matter if you've only got one or whichever type you've got. These are 1/2-inch flat brushes. One is just really kind of smooth and flat, and kind of flattens out really nice. The other one is an old beat up one that's gotten really fluffy on me, and they both have their uses. So I've got both of those. Then I've got a number 4 flat, okay, little rectangular shaped brush, okay, with again also narrows in really nicely at the tip. And then I've got 2 number 2s. These are small flat brushes. This is going to be good for my detail work. Lots of little small touches, subtle touches in the water will get done with that, or this little number 2 that's also fluffy, kind of like the other, like a 1/2-inch brush. And then lastly, especially when I paint the birds, I'm using this small number 0 detail brush. It's just a very tiny little brush that's going to allow me to create the little details in the bird's wings. Okay. So those are the brushes. I talked about the colors. Paper towels, very handy. I've got 2 water cups. Okay, I don't know that I'll be using the second one much, but I do have one that's already dirty because I did a little practice run earlier today to make sure that I was nice and warmed up for today's session. So I've got some water that's already diluted with a bit of paint. That's what we're going to be using. And then I've got one, that's my backup clear water in case at some point my my main water cup becomes too saturated with paint, and I can always switch over to the other one. Okay, as far as the supplies, that's going to be it for today. I am painting on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. The size that you use is entirely up to you. You don't have to use a canvas for this type of painting. You can use a mixed media pad. You could use watercolor paper if you're using watercolors. You could use a wood panel, etc., etc., etc. Give me a second while I turn down my fan. I feel like I'm having to struggle to hear myself. So anyhow, that is the supplies list for today. Those are the details. I feel like I'm missing something here. Oh, so I don't know how many of you are actually using the stencil for today. For the piece, for the painting. Maybe you've laid everything out using that stencil that I provided you. Again, I teach everything from scratch, and everything that we're doing today is also from scratch, including those birds. But if you're using that stencil, fantastic. Let's see. Let me say hello to a couple of you before we get moving. What's happening, Julie? How are you? You're very welcome. Lori Fife from Ontario, Canada. Hello again. And then Janet, again from Houston. Fantastic. We've got quite a few of you coming back. So let's talk about this water. So I wanted to be a little clear. I touched a little on this yesterday. The painting is meant to be somewhat realistic, but not super realistic. The difference, while subtle, or can be subtle, especially from a distance, because I know from a distance there's a lot of realism, especially in that sky. And if you appreciate the ocean from a little bit of a distance, there's also, some realism involved. But the more realism that is involved in a piece, usually it also involves a lot more time, a lot more detail, a lot more layering, and a lot more subtle touches. This painting today has some impressionistic qualities, and that water especially is more of an impression, somewhere in the middle between impressionistic and realistic. So we're going to maintain that same style of water for today. There are different ways to make water. There are different approaches to it. This is one. And if you have your own approach, let's say you're already familiar with making water and you want to change things up, please feel free to change it up however you'd like. Okay? But I hope that, if you're looking at the water going, it looks a little tough, it looks a little intimidating. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. A lot of times painting is not easy. Oftentimes it's frustrating, and it does try your patience, but that is part of the journey. The more you push yourself, usually the better painter you become. You're basically forcing your brain to adapt and to learn new things. Sometimes when you're trying something, it may not work, but you try something slightly different, and then it hits, and you're like, oh wow, that was it. So experimentation is a part of it. So I want you guys to push through it no matter what happens during the session. If you're happy or unhappy, continue to push through it. Whether you end up with something really nice or not, the journey is super important. What you result with at the end is less important, in my opinion, than what you learn getting there. Eventually, every painting that you make makes you a better painter overall. Okay, so it is good to attempt difficult things because those are usually where you're going to learn the most. Okay, all right. That being said, I know a lot of talky. A little sip of my coffee. I'm drinking some cold coffee today. Not freezing, it's not ice, but it's chilled. So a little coffee. Cheers to all of us and to all of you and to me and to anybody that's going to be painting this with the recorded session. So I've got a mix plate here. Whoops, that's another piece that I didn't mention. I've got a plate over here. I've already shown you the paint colors primarily that I'm going to be using today. I'm going to be mixing them here, maybe a little bit on the wet palette. Okay, for those of you that may not be familiar with the wet palette, there's a sponge at the bottom. On top of it, there's a palette paper. There's palette paper, and the combination keeps my paints wet and fresh for quite some time. It is a little hot in my studio. I've got my fan going, and that is drying this regardless a little faster than normal. So, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to mix some colors on my plate. I'm going to grab some of my primary blue. Don't need a lot of this color, but we do need a good amount. So primary blue. I'm going to grab a little bit of green. So again, this is a dark kind of foresty green. I'm going to add that to my palette. Don't need a lot of that green, a little bit. And I'm also going to grab a little bit of my ultramarine blue, just a smidge of that. So primary blue, ultramarine blue, and some green. We're going to mix these together. And then in a moment, I'll come over and I'll mix a little bit of white. You'll see what I'm talking about. First, we mix these colors together, creating kind of a dark greenish blue, maybe not that green. We're going to add a little bit more primary blue. So I'm just reaching over, grabbing more of that primary blue. So we've got this base that we created yesterday. That base is going to come through a little bit with these layers that we're going to be adding in a moment. So I'm taking my brush, I dip it slightly into my water cup, and I add some water in here. Okay, so I'm going to bring some of this color over here. I'm going to have two batches of color for this next step, a darker one and a lighter one. So now, coming over to, whoops, something just turned off. Sure did. Give me a second, everybody. See, I've lost a camera. Hold on, everyone. I am not a magician. There was a little disappearing act. I lost power. I lost power to my camera, and I have no idea how. I went over. I heard the click on the camera. When it clicked, shut off, and then I quickly realized that I wasn't seeing myself on the screen anymore. So I ran around, and I do have an idea. I think one of the plugs was slightly loose, but I'm not totally positive that was the case. So anyway, I'm back. But yeah, that was a little scary. Anyway, I'm back. So whatever that was, I'm almost sure that it's not going to happen again. So here we go. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I've got two batches of color here. I'm reaching over to, this is exactly where I left off a moment ago. I'm reaching over to my white, okay, and I'm grabbing a bit of that white. We're going to bring it over, and I'm going to put it over to the side for now. We're going to start to mix it into here. Hi, Tina. I think I saw you commenting, for responding to somebody. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Folks, if you have questions in between, you guys already know, ask your questions. More than happy to answer them. Okay, so I've got two colors now. I've got this darker section. I'm actually going to lighten this up a little bit. It's too dark. I made it too light, so I'm going to grab more of the primary blue, bring that over. So I want a light version of this mixture and then a dark version of it. Okay, so light and dark. Okay, water. I'm going to dip my brush into that water, and I'm not using a whole bunch of water, but I am grabbing enough to get this nice and fluid. Okay, not too watery, but just somewhere in between. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to switch brushes. This is too big for what I was about to attempt. Okay, I'm going to switch over to one of my 1/2-inch flat brushes. I'm going to grab my little fluffy one for now. Okay, my little fluffy brush. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating some of these dark areas that we see on the original painting. These big parts. So I go like this. And like this. So where the big kind of sections are of dark color, we're going to add that right now. So then we got some up here. And I'm not trying to be exacting or, create these perfect sections. There's going to be some overlap. You'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. Now, the less paint that's on my brush as I'm painting around, the less paint that I've got, the more of this transparent color that you'll get. We're going to use both of those. Okay, I'm going to grab more of the dark, and I'm going to come over to the other side and now this is a little bit more greenish than the original. That's okay. We're going to adjust that later. Unless you like a color like this, if yours looks like this and you like it, well, awesome. Okay, a little more. Okay, a little bit more water. We need more water, so what I'm doing here is I'm creating this kind of larger wave shape. Oops, that's probably not quite right. It's all right. We'll adjust it. What I want you to see is though that it's a little streaky. It's kind of uneven. Okay, that's what we want. We're laying down the foundations of the waves, the colors that are going to come on top of this later. So we want to just play around a little bit. Come over to the other side. Again, this is just one way to make water. I don't want you guys to think that, this is it. Lots of different ways. What's the saying? Lots of different ways to skin a cat. This is just one of them. I could have also started with the lighter of the two colors. I didn't have to start with the darker one. This is just a choice that I made, and I went with it. Okay, but again, it's about layering. A little more water in here. Just want to make sure I keep this nice and wet. So we're in here now, right about in here. And again, don't stress about trying to recreate my exact version of the painting. Do your best, but without stressing too much. Everyone's going to be painting something a little different. So the original color, this base color that we laid down yesterday, again, forms the foundation of the colors above. So a lot of this color is still going to come through. So the color is getting a little bit washed out from all the paint. So I'm going to grab all the water. I'm going to grab a little bit more blue. I'm just reaching over and grabbing a little bit, just a little bit like this. And then I come over and I mix it in here. So in a moment, I'll take a look at your comments. Hopefully they're staying up to date. And I can see them. In case, if you guys have any questions about anything, make sure you put them in those comments. Remember, I'm here to answer your questions, everyone. More than happy to. Especially if you're newer or experienced. Questions come up, right? So don't be shy. Ask your questions. More than happy to address them. Okay, so right in here, it's a little bit lighter. Some lighter sections here, some kind of broad light areas. Melanie, how's it going? Julie, you're welcome. Julie Schultz from Tallahassee. Sorry, missed yesterday. Minor hurricane issues. Oh, yeah, no, I understand that. No worries. If you missed yesterday, you're able to paint with a recorded session. Not to worry. Okay, so here's my lighter color. Again, I watered it down a little bit. Same brush. I didn't clean it up. I just dipped a little bit more white, threw it in here, threw some water on here, and here we go. So this section's kind of a lighter section. Notice how I'm doing this, folks. It's nice and loose. The pressure is not, it's not really intense pressure or lots of paint. It's a little bit thinned out. And I'm just going through and creating these bands of light and dark. It's already starting to look a little bit like water. And again, don't stress if your painting doesn't look just like mine, all right? I want to keep repeating that because I know our brains get caught up. We start going, oh my God, mine looks so different than his. I'm doing terribly. Don't stress about that. Do your best. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the process. So here's what we got right now. Thinned out, not slightly, pretty watery paint, I guess. Streaky. That is still part of the base. What happens next, and this is drying fairly quickly on my painting, on my canvas, because it's fairly hot in my studio. As I mentioned, my studio's in my garage. I've got an air conditioning unit in here, and I've got a fan going, but it's still fairly warm. But the combination of the air and the warmth is drying up my canvas pretty fast. It's almost completely dry. So give you guys about a minute and a half to catch up, and I'm going to start looking at these comments. Hopefully they're staying up to date. And I still don't see the comments on the main page. So weird. Not sure why. Already did that. Okay. Oh, I think I need to go to dashboard. All right, here we go. There we are. There's the comments. What's happening, Rhonda? Thank you so much. Let me scroll back, see if I've missed any questions. Again, everybody, I'm looking at the questions now. If you guys have anything for me, please put it in the comments. If you want to say hello, let me know where you're joining from. I'd love to say hello to you. Okay, I think I've just got to scroll through all of the comments. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with more of the same, just with thicker paint. Okay, I'm going to grab more of my primary blue. I'm switching brushes now. I'm going to go over to my other 1/2-inch flat brush. Okay, this one here, the little skinnier one. The other fluffier one just helped me cover more ground, more area more quickly. So right up here, I'm not going to worry about mixing anything here yet. We'll add some of that later. We'll take a little bit of, just a tiny bit of the primary blue. We'll throw that in there also. Okay, a little bit of white. I don't want this too dark or completely just the blues as they come out of the bottle or the little tubes. I want there to be slightly lighter color. So I just added a touch of white, maybe a smidge more. Okay, just a tiny bit of white, lightening this up nicely. What's happening, Lynn from Canada? Okay, here's what we're doing now. I'm going to take this and I'm going to start to add some of these darker sections, okay? These large dark sections, but this time with thicker paint. Okay, I added a little bit of water now, just mixed a tiny bit of that water. I'm going to start here at the top, using the edge of my brush, the skinny part, where I'm mainly kind of using the little corner, that little corner edge of the front. And watch how I use this. I'm just lightly moving paint. I'm not covering every single bit of the canvas. What I'm doing is I'm looking over at the original and just kind of following a little bit of these darker areas, blocking them in a bit, blocking them in. Okay, a little bit. Okay. I just grab some more and I come over, maybe over to this side. So lick this in here and that up on top. We'll start up at the top. Okay, I'm going to switch brushes. This one, I think I need something a little smaller. Going over to my number 4. Just need something a little narrower, skinnier, less of a footprint, especially up in these areas. The majority of today is going to be spent creating the water. Then towards the end, we're going to add the birds in. We're going to add in maybe some final touches to the sky a little bit, and we'll take a look at all that we've got, and we'll go from there. So again, folks, all I'm doing right now, I'm going to give you a close-up. I'm creating the big shapes. Those big shapes that you see in here. The big dark blue shapes, okay? And they don't have to be exact. I'm just kind of loosely recreating them from the original over to the new canvas. And I'm not trying to make them. I need some more paint here in a second, I think. I just grabbed more paint. So for example, right here, we're going to talk about this one here real quick. This one starts over here towards the center. And now I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Goes up into a little peak here. Drops down. It all starts to make sense as we continue. We're layering here, we're layering there. It starts to look like something. But you got to trust in the process. Okay. A little bit of water. Sometimes I grab a little more water. Sometimes I don't grab that much. Sometimes I don't grab any at all. It just depends. All those subtle differences are what start creating the little tiny changes in the painting that are going to make it work. Okay, so down in here. If you're kind of looking at this going, yeah, I'm not sure what Jesse's doing at the moment. I'm not quite getting it. Try to match these big areas that I'm creating. Try to match them on your canvas. For now, just kind of trust and go, okay, I'm just going to place them in the same place, or more or less in the same place that Jesse's putting them. Okay, so this would be approximately this way. This here is approximately this area in here. There's obviously going to be a lot of other things that happen. We're going to be layering on top of layering, so that's all of it starts to create all those little extra, or the depth that we're looking for. But again, trust that process. Same color. Unless I tell you folks, and you see me, let's say you don't see what I'm doing off the camera. I'm just, you see my brush come back. I just grabbed the same color. Okay, so I'm in here now. And again, sometimes there's a little more water in the paint. Sometimes there's a little less. I'm going to grab some more green. I think I'm going to grab a bit of this green now. Throw in a little bit of that in here. You notice I didn't take it and add it everywhere. I just found a little spot over here. I threw it in there. What's happening, Christina from Palm Beach? Welcome. I'm just going to come in here and remember, folks, try to relax. Enjoy the process. I'm going to grab a bit of water now. I'm just going to come bring that water right over in the same little spot. Bring this over here. Okay, same thing. Just right in here. So again, everyone, don't forget both sessions are going to be available for replay. If you're painting live right now with me and you don't get a chance to finish, We're going to be painting for approximately an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours today, approximately. If you don't get a chance to finish because you got to leave or because you simply fell behind or you had something to do, etc., don't stress about that. Do what you can and then come on back and join in on the recorded sessions. So now I'm just a little more water there. I'm just feathering lightly here and there. A little here. So this color is just a little different because it has a little bit of the green in it. It's also really watered down, so it's transparent now. I'm taking, maybe not really, really watered down, but it's watered down all right. Okay. So let me show you. Although it's beginning to look like water, it looks kind of like a painting, maybe a preschooler would make, or a a young child might make something like this. Okay. At this point, it doesn't look. I mean, it looks interesting, and then it kind of resembles water. The case can be made that it's water. Excuse me, but we're layering. Okay, we're working through that process of layering. So give you guys about a minute to catch up there. Let me look over on my YouTube folks. See what's happening over there. Hey, Melinda Mulligan, how are you? Okay, we got a few people on YouTube. What's happening, YouTube land? Again, I'm live streaming both to Facebook and to YouTube. Maybe eventually I will also be able to do live stream directly to Instagram. That'd be kind of cool to Instagram to all three at the same time. Maybe even TikTok. A guy can dream. All right, everybody. If you guys are ready to move on, let me know by hitting that like button. Just hit those likes. I get those little emojis pop up on my screen. Just kind of flood the screen, which is kind of cool. So give me some emojis. If not, we got 30 seconds. All right. Not seeing any emojis. It could be because I'm not on the right screen. It's okay. I better not mess with it. Otherwise, I'm going to end up messing up. Should be on mute there. Okay. See, S. Sarah says, my base for the water is very dark, so these dark areas don't show very well. Okay. So then, listen to the question, folks. This is a good one. So one of the painters said, and the initials are S. Sarah's. Looks like on YouTube says, my base for the water is very dark, so these dark areas don't show up very well. Okay, no worries. So you add those dark areas as we just did, and you don't see them very well. So then those are still going to look like this, because what you're going to do to offset that is you're going to add more of the lighter stuff. So here's what it sounds like then. Assume that for what we're doing, you've already got these parts done. The dark areas are already in. So what you're going to focus a little bit more on is the highlights, these lighter areas, the overall. I'm not talking about the little tiny white or lighter lines. I'm talking about these broader, lighter areas. You're going to focus a little bit more on that to offset, and so that's what's going to give you your realism in your water, or your it's what's going to compensate for that, to make it look like water. Okay. If you need a little more details on that, let me know. If anybody else is in that same boat, that's an excellent question. So see, folks, if you have a question, please, if you're wondering how something's working or something's not clear, please ask it, because it may help. It may help somebody else. Okay. All right. So next step, back to my number 4. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I've got lots of blue paint on it. So this guy right here, number 4, I'm going to scoop up some white. And, still have some on my plate here, so I should just grab it from here. And I'm going to mix just a tiny bit of blue with it, just a bit. So it becomes a really light blue. And I'll grab a little bit more water or more paint. I'm going to dip my brush in that water, bring that water over. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to block in these big light shapes where the light's reflecting in the water on the crest of those waves. Okay, so hey Ivy from San Diego, welcome back to the channel, to the page. And I'm going to start with this part right here. I can start anywhere, but I'm going to start right here because I've got lots of paint on the brush. And so what I did here, I already kind of created this shape in here. So what I'm going to do with my paint, starting here at the top, I'm just going to start to create the crest of that wave. This isn't going to be the end result. We're just starting to block out or sketch out, if you will, with paint, the sections of the waves. Okay, so there's that part there. Then I can come up over the top here and kind of same thing. I've got this little area that's lighter than the rest of this in here. You guys kind of see that? I'm just going to take my brush right over the top of that. Now, if this size brush doesn't work for you, switch over to a different brush. Okay. See that? And I'm varying the pressure. I'm varying the intensity of that. Maybe a smaller brush works for you. Let's see. I'm going to make another one. Let's say right about in here. Okay, and let's see. We'll stick to one side for now. There's another one right here. So again, I'm trying to catch the top, work the top of these darker areas that I created. Even if yours aren't in the same place, just pick a few of them and use those. And I'm just kind of working right over the top of that. Okay. We don't want the same intensity throughout. We want to vary things a bit. So if it's a little lighter, more intense, other parts are a little bit less, they're smaller. So vary your pressure a little bit to create that variation in the paint. Okay, now is when your water is going to start to look a little bit like water. A little bit more water. And if you don't have a number 4, or if the number 4 isn't working for you, maybe it's too big, switch to a smaller brush. Okay. And then we're going to go, okay, we're going to come right over here. Now watch what I'm doing here, okay? I'm just dabbing, and these little waves are a little bit closer to the front. They're more in the foreground. Okay. If your paint looks a little bit more light than mine, more of a lighter blue color, or more of a bluish color, that's okay. And I say that just in case some of you mix some blue in there and you're like, well, it's not quite light enough. Or it's not as light as Jesse's. It's okay. Okay, and then I'm going to continue. Maybe this right in here, and that would probably be around right about here. Okay, and then maybe I've got, what the heck, maybe a little bit right here. Okay, back over to the top on the left side. Maybe right about here. And again, everyone, I'm not trying to match the original exactly, right? Or there's going to be some variation between both of the paintings. That's okay. Little by little, layer by layer. Now, this highlight, the highlight part of a painting, highlights adding part of a painting, uh, often is done towards the end. But in this case, what I'm doing is I'm blocking out parts of my wave so that it's easier for us to see where we're going to be going, especially earlier on in the painting, or if you're newer to painting, sometimes it helps to do it this way. You'll go, okay, all right, so now you get a better idea. So what you're working with, and your brain better accepts what the steps are, how we're going to get to the end result. Okay, and I'm just going to come down. What I'm going to do next is this, right here where the sun starts to, this middle part right in there. I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to grab so Sophie, great question. How do you create sense of depth? So what you can do is you'll make the stuff in the foreground more detailed and larger details. So all these little waves that you see in here should be larger than the little waves that you see towards the back. So let me give you a close-up of the original. Now I didn't spend, hold on one second. Great question. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time on that on this painting, okay? But that is a great question. What you would do, two things, and there's a little bit of it in this. In the front, there's more detail. There's more obvious detail in here than there is towards the back. So like, for example, these little crests that you see in the water, these little tiny reflections are a little bit larger. You can also make these reflections in here larger, and they get smaller and skinnier as you go work your way towards the back. Also, the waves in the front, like these that are a little closer to the foreground, are larger. They tend to be a little larger than the ones in the back. The crests, the top of the waves, skinnier and maybe a little bit more blue, less intense. Okay, whereas the stuff in the front again starts to get whiter, and whiter. Okay, but more details, larger details. So exaggerate these, and back here they're smaller, they're tiny, they're little tiny ones that you barely see. Okay, again, I didn't do a lot of that on this painting, but that's how you would address that. Excellent question. Okay, smaller, less detailed towards the back, larger, more detailed towards the front. Okay, kind of in a general sense. But good question. Very good question. Let's continue. Okay. So I'm switching brushes here. Oops. Let me switching over to my little number 2 flat. Okay, same color. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start right in here where the sun reflects down into the water. What I'm doing, using the skinny part of the brush, I'm starting to create the reflection of that sun. Now again, this detail work can be done later in the painting, but I'm laying down the groundwork in these steps, and what I'm trying to do is two things: maintain the highlight directly down, straight down. If you were to draw it's like a 90-degree angle from the sun, straight down from here to the bottom of the canvas. And it can, in my case it does, it gets a little bit larger as we move closer to the foreground. I'm not trying to make it as large as it's going to end up right now, but it is getting a little larger as we're moving down here. And this is all I'm doing. We're working back and forth. Now imagine there's little waves in here, so as you're working your way down, the highlights, the reflections in the water take shape. It can form little waves. Okay. Again, I didn't do a lot of that in here because I didn't want to make the painting too complex. This one over here is a little bit, I would flesh it out a little bit more by adding those same details that I just discussed. What's happening, Sue? How are you? So again, back to the same thing. We're just kind of this looks a little bit lighter because I just picked up more fresh paint. So if, for example, as I'm working this paint, I see one of these little things that goes up that kind of was created with my brush, or when I added the colors earlier, maybe my highlights go up a little bit. They go up into the wave. Maybe, for example, here, they kind of go up a little bit. Okay? You can create that sense of movement. So again, we're only laying down the groundwork right now. And this whole session, for the most part, is going to be on the water. So we're going to spend some time working this out. Now, one thing that I just noticed is that my highlight is doing this. It's a little bit of a, because I'm at an angle, I'm not directly in front of the canvas. I did this instead of this. And that's okay. That's an easy adjustment. Now I can come over to the other side and just make it wider this way. So I expand it so it gets larger in this direction, and I make up for that. A lot of painting is about making those adjustments. You're like, oh, I gotta you've got to pivot, change direction a little bit. You don't always have to have your complete idea or step-by-step in your head from start to finish. A lot of times that you can have a general idea, you can have your steps written out, but as you're going, something doesn't work right, something's not quite working the way it normally does because it's warmer, because it's colder, et cetera, et cetera. You make it, you pivot, you change directions. But also, folks, really quickly, if some of you are new to the page, last month I did, oh, I don't have it behind me, and I don't have it on my rack over there. Last month I did another one, another ocean scene. This was a little tropical, a really easy tropical beach scene. I think it was actually in June. Last month was July. So in June, I did a tropical beach painting with a little, there's a shore, there's a couple of palm trees in it, there's trees off in the distance. You got the shore, the sand, and then some water, kind of easy, relaxing water. And I think we had some clouds in the sky. If you're interested in going to check that out, go into the event page on the Painting with Jesse page. You look back, it's like 2 events ago. Last month in July, we did a Aurora Borealis painting. So that you'll see that one there too. Go back one further, and you're going to see the I think I called that. What did I call that? Serene. I don't remember what the heck I called it at the moment. My brain's not going to remember. But yeah, you're going to see that. Okay. So here we go. And again, we kind of sketched everything. We blocked things in. We've sketched things out. And in the next steps, we're going to start adding details. What time do we got? Okay. So we have about an hour left to the painting today. So we're going to pick things up a little bit. If I start moving too quickly for you, don't stress. Everybody has a different pace to paint. Even experienced painters can be really meticulous and slower, and you got some people who are really fast at painting. So don't stress about it. If you get a little bit behind, remember that you can always pause the session and go at your own pace. But just because of the time factor, I need to speed things up a little bit. There are a couple little things I want to do here real fast that I kind of forgot to add. Right over here, we got this little crest. We got another one over here. And then let's see, maybe we got a lot more of these happening throughout. We're going to add them in a little bit, but after you're done with this part of the steps, you should have a good idea that you're painting water. It should look, now with those highlights that we added, it should look like we've got some water. If somebody looks at it, they're going to go, oh yeah, that's water. It may not be super detailed, it may not be great water, but it's water. Okay, that's kind of where you want to be when you're done with this step. Always take a moment to take a step back, look at your painting from a distance, reassess, assess. If you need to refresh your brain, your vision, look off into, I don't know, the corner of your studio, your room, meditate for a couple of minutes, do some stretches, walk away, come back and look at it again, and it helps you look at anything that you might have maybe missed. And so you make your adjustments if you need to make any, and then you're ready to go on. Okay? But with this, we're ready to start adding the details that really start to layer on top of each other to make a big impact. Now, what we're going to be doing next is going to be a little bit, I guess, kind of tedious, if you will, because there's lots of repetitive movements, but they're important. Again, painting is one of those things that the more detail you have on a piece, the bigger it is, the more complex it is, it's going to require more time. So, as long as you're accepting of that and you're willing to put in that time, you will be okay. All right, so we're going to get moving here on the next steps. Okay, before I start with all of that, here's what I'm going to show you. A little close-up of the original. The original has lots of subtle changes of color. It goes from blue to a lighter blue, to an aqua blue, to a really kind of dark, almost purple blue. You have this combination of colors that are in the painting, creating those dimensions, those elements of depth. Now, to Sophie's question from earlier, you see these little lines in here? Those are bigger than I would normally make them if I wanted to create that depth that we talked about earlier. These little lines in here would be smaller, given that we're trying to create that effect of depth. Stuff like that would be smaller. I'm pointing that out just so that you can kind of understand what I was talking about. So these are about the same size. So those little lines up in here would get smaller as we work our way back. And again, because I wasn't trying to go too detailed into that when I created the painting, I did not do that here. So I just wanted to kind of hint on that or explain that, point that out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play with the different colors on the palette. I'm going to use my wet palette over here because I want to, I don't know what I did with my little spritzer. I've got not a spritzer, a mister. I've got a little mister bottle that I haven't used it all summer. Today would be a good day to use it. And before we started, I quickly looked for it. I don't know if I took it inside the house or what, but it's been a while since I saw it. So I'm reintroducing the paint colors to my palette. Primary blue, ultramarine blue, some of the dark green, and I may have to go over and grab some more because this tube is about shot. Don't need a lot of it though, so let me see if I can get some out. There we go. Just a little bit. And then, of course, some white. Where did my white go? It's right in front of my face once again, but it's backwards. I can't see the color. There we go. All right. So here we go. Primary blue, ultramarine blue, green, and white. Okay. Again, I'm going to be mixing colors here on my wet palette to help keep them a little bit cleaner or fresher. If you don't have one of those, don't worry about it. Every time you see me looking down, folks, if you see me looking down, I'm sure you guys know, but just in case I want to clarify, I'm looking at the laptop, monitoring the live stream, but also looking at your comments and things like that. And I also look back here on my other camera to make sure that things are good there too. So what brush am I going to be using for this next step? I'm going to grab my 1/2-inch flat brush, this guy right here. Okay, I'm going to take some primary blue, bring it over here, throw in a little bit of white. Thank you, Sue. Hope you're doing well. I think you mentioned in a post that you might have taken a fall or something like that. Hope you're feeling okay. I think I remember I saw that. Okay, so I got this really pretty kind of in between medium bluish color. It'll take just a little tiny bit of green. I don't want to add too much, just a little bit. Throw that in there too. Okay. And what I'm doing here is I'm not mixing the color entirely. I've got a combination of the colors in there, but they're not fully mixed where I can see some areas are a little bit greener than others. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to start picking little spots where I want to add this color. And I'm just lightly putting this color in here. A little bit of water, thinning it out. Just kind of lightly coming in here and finding little areas to add this to. And once again, I'm not putting it everywhere. You guys hear my little girl in the background. Her and Mama are leaving, and she can hear me talking, so she's calling for me. I don't know if you guys can hear it. It's a really tiny little voice in the background. There, through the garage door, you can hear her, because she can hear me. So again, I'm just introducing this color, just creating little streaks. I'm gonna go keep a little. We'll change up the color here just a bit. We're creating depth. We're creating dimension and layers and intrigue. How about that? Okay, so I've got that color still here. I'm going to grab a bit more white now. Get it a little lighter. And once again, you notice I didn't get it everywhere. I just picked a little area and add a little bit like this. I don't always know if it's the right color until I actually put it onto the canvas. Sometimes I'll put on a color and I'll go, ooh, that's a little too bright, or it's not the right blue, or it's not the right green. And then sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's perfect. I'm like, ooh, that's pretty. Okay. So again, all I'm doing right now is finding little spots to add this color to. Water's moving, right? Some of the areas are, what is it called? A trough and a, what is that called? I can't remember. It's troughs and when you're talking about waves. So you got the top part of the wave, peaks and troughs. So you got the top of the wave, the peak, and then the trough, the bottom of the wave. I believe that's the right way to explain that. And there's different sizes of those, right? Some waves are taller, some waves are smaller, some waves are wider, larger. So all of those are going to catch color a little bit differently. And so all we're doing, we're maintaining the same colors, the same general dark areas and light areas, but we're enhancing them a little bit with touches of other bits of color, just like you'd find in the water. It's getting dark out there, sun is dropping, there's not as much light. So things are generally getting a little darker, but you're still going to get some light reflecting through it. You're still going to get some color and some variation. So still working with that same color, okay? Haven't changed anything. And make sure you give it a little bit of movement. so that you're creating little tiny waves, big waves. I feel like I need more of this light color in here. Make it even a bit lighter. Probably a little too light. A little bit of water helps make it nice and thin and smooth. I'm going to go maybe a little too light. I don't know yet. We'll see. Maybe we're reflecting too much water, much light back there. So again, everybody, in case you didn't catch my announcements at the beginning, next week at some point, I'm going to be teaching how to make homemade wet palettes. Don't know the date yet. I know it's kind of last minute. Wish I had the date for you already, but I'll post that soon. And then on the 21st of September, got guest artist Maite Zabrowski coming on to teach us how to paint, how to do one-stroke paintings. We're doing a really cool autumn theme with pretty flowers and leaves and lots of fall colors. So be on the lookout for that information. She's going to be here on the Painting with Jesse page with us. Okay. So, all right. Let me give you a close-up. These changes that I just added are nice and subtle. Okay, nothing too intense, nothing too crazy. Okay, in just a little bit, we're going to go with some darker colors and do the kind of the same thing. The idea is to get those subtle differences in color, those subtle changes. And then I should have another Painting with Jesse session that's open to everyone at some point between now and the 21st of September. So there should be another one in there somewhere. I'll be posting about that, and of course also sharing it to the Painting with Jesse email list. So make sure you're on that. I always post everything on the Painting with Jesse page, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. And then also next month, Saturday, September 16th through the 24th, 8 days, whatever. There's a little window in there. My membership group, I have a membership group here on Facebook. I'm opening the doors to let new people that are on the wait list, people that are interested in joining. So be on the lookout for the details on that. I will likely be sharing more information on that sometime later today or tomorrow. Not sure which, but be on the lookout for that. Okay, if you're interested. All right, so same brush. Okay, I'm gonna grab a bit more of my primary blue, bring it over here like this. Add a little bit of my ultramarine, just a smidge, not too much. Don't want it too purple. And then once again, tiny bit of that green, throw it in there. We're gonna find a few little dark areas to enhance. Okay, we're going to go like this. Now, I didn't add any water in this case. We'll probably add some here in just a bit. Sometimes I dab, sometimes I brush, sometimes I just press a little bit. And again, we're making little streaks, making little patches of dark areas. We're not covering everything up. Is anybody that's painting right now on here that joined me for the beach painting that I described a little while ago, the one with the palm tree, the little shore with the water and any of you that are on here, did you guys join me for that? And is anybody on here that did not join me for that, that would like to check that out. That was a really fun one. So it's much simpler, much easier than this by like probably 3 times easier. In case anyone's interested, let me know in the comments. Say interested in the tropical beach. I think that's what it was. Tropical beach painting. And I'll share the link with you on that. I don't think I created a stencil for that, but I guess I could. That one was all freehand, if I remember right. But even with that, it's easier than this one, even without the stencil. Sounds good, Pamela. Okay, I'll share that information. I'll come back and share it with you. But again, anyone that's interested, please let me know. I'll share that link. That one was, like I said, easily 3 times easier than this one. And lots of fun. Simpler, not as many elements, but it's mainly that it wasn't anywhere near as detailed. So again, still same color. I'm just going through and adding pops of color here and there. Okay, switching brushes now. Same color, I'm just switching brushes. I'm going to come in here and cover up a little bit of that white part. I'm going to change the direction of the wave a little bit. Okay, maybe I'll try to do the same thing over here. So I'm just covering up the wave that I had there that was crested. I'm just changing it, giving it slightly higher peak. So I'm changing that a bit. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit more green now. I'm going to throw in some green. Give me a sec while I show you guys that. Oh, awesome, Desiree. Thank you so much. Oh, you did the, oh, yeah, there we go. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, there you go, everybody. There's part 1. Part 2 would be right after that. In the same, if you go to the event page, it's easy to find. If you go to the live tab at the top, it might be a little bit harder to find, but it's up there. I'm just mixing in a bit of green and white to make it slightly more kind of aqua color. A little bit of water. Again, everyone, we're still in the little subtle details part of all this. Just adding little bits of color, pops of color. Also, the more complex the painting, the longer it takes. We did do that one in 2 parts, but we really slowed that one down. Actually, they're both really slowed down. This one's pretty slowed down too. Let's see. I'm going to give you guys a close-up here. Show you guys what I'm doing. Light touches. Okay. Dab here, a pull there. Here, from top to bottom. Okay, sounds good, Melissa. I will come back and share that. Like I said, the Aurora Borealis, another one, fairly easy piece, probably twice as easy as this one, or half as difficult, let's say it like that, as this one. Beautiful piece, a lot of fun to do. But yeah, definitely, folks, if you guys are missing it, it sounds like you're missing out. Sounds like you guys are not following the page, so you're missing out on these sessions. But that's okay. Not the end of the world. You can always go back and do those. But definitely, if you're not on the Painting with Jesse email list, again, I send that information out every time I post. Every time I'm going to do a new session, I send out the information on the Painting with Jesse list, and if there's a stencil, I send that stencil out to you guys also, just to make it easy. I teach everything from scratch. All right, Pamela, you're excused. You're excused. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, folks. I know. It's, there's a lot of Facebook pages. You guys are busy folk, but and I'm just messing with you. But definitely, make sure you guys get on that list because you get a lot of goodies with that. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on all these tiny. This is where things get a little tedious. All those little, you see little waves, lines, dashes, slightly curved lines all throughout. Okay, that's what we're going to be adding. And if you're looking to really create depth, again, follow those little instructions that I talked about earlier when Josie, I believe it was, asked the question. More larger ones in the front and less of those smaller as you move backwards into the distance. So back there, you would see a lot less of them, and they start to become more prominent in here. I do have a little bit of that in the original. Okay, I do have some of that, but if you want to enhance that, that's how you would do that. All right, what brush am I going to use for this bit of handiwork? I'm going to grab my number 2 flat brush, this little guy. And we're going to move a little quickly through this because you don't need to spend a lot of time. It's almost kind of a little bit of a mindless endeavor. Some primary blue. It's not totally mindless, don't get me wrong. You do have to kind of be strategic, but it doesn't take a lot of thought. Mixing some white in here. Now, again, I won't know for sure until I start putting down the first of these lines whether I've got the right color. And it's going to, or the right intensity, the right brightness. If it's too light, they're going to get washed out, or they're going to look like these. If they're too dark, they're not going to be obvious enough or subtle enough. So we'll see. So I'm going to start up here in the front, and I'll do, well, that's not too bad. It's a little on the darker side. Maybe need to come up a little bit in color, but you see them right there. And all I'm doing is making little streaks. I'm going to make them a little lighter now because that is definitely a little too dark. So just adding more white in here. Who on here, if anyone has been following me since COVID. COVID is when I started to do the live streams on the Painting with Jesse page. And that 2020, I think I probably did something like 6, 7, 8, sometimes 9 painting sessions a month. 9 and 8 were rare, but definitely I would do 7s and 6s most of 2020, starting in, I think it was like April, right after the pandemic started. Everybody was home. I was home. So here's what I'm doing. Okay, little waves. I'll change the color on this in a bit. For now, they're just this kind of a light blue, light greenish color. Okay, and I'm using the skinny part of the brush. I'm not using the broad part. So kind of little waves, little reflections in that water. I'm going to work my way back. I'm going to try to make them a little smaller as they move backwards. Some of them overlap. Some of them are just single little lines like that. Okay, as I start to move back, they become less prominent. And less intense. They're also less curved or less. They're shorter. They're smaller. They're tinier. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll find these little areas where there's a separation of color. So there's a darker area here and then a lighter one there, and I'll just do a little highlight just to kind of enhance that. Like for example here. Okay. There's your water starting to form that pretty, those little tiny waves that you see in the ocean. Okay, I'm going to come over to this side. I'm going to leave this back here alone for a bit. I'm going to come over to this side and do the same thing. Remember, larger in the front. A little longer, bigger. Some of them are just lines like that. That's okay, Pamela. If you have too many waves, you can always cover some of them up a little bit. You got it, Desiree. Fantastic. So you've been a long time follower, and this is your first session with me. That is pretty cool. So let me ask you a question. I'm not putting you on the spot. A lot of it has to do with time and timing and everything else. Did you just recently start painting, or did you just kind of maybe recently decide, oh, I'll give that guy a shot, see what it's like to join in? Or what's happening? What made you, maybe you recently started painting? Well, I hope you're enjoying the session. I hope you're enjoying it. Oh, hold on one second. So I'm looking over at my screen here to monitor. Let's see. Where are we? Okay, good. All right, here we go. We're continuing here. We'll come back and add some brighter ones of these. Right now, we're just sticking to kind of the same color. Now look, some areas are a little bit more straightforward. They don't have to be peaks all the time. Sometimes it depends on how the water's moving. If it's going up, it's doing this. Or for example, maybe they're just kind of following the flow of that water. Just moving back a little bit. Again, further back, they get a little bit smaller. And I want to remind everyone, this is even though it's beginner friendly, it's not an easy piece. Okay, I don't want you guys to get the impression that you're supposed to have an easy time at this. It is meant to push you a little bit. It's beginner friendly, especially the instruction part of it. Trying to slow things down a lot, trying to make it, so it's nice and easy to follow along and stuff. But it is not by any means meant to be a really easy process. If you're looking for something a little easier, definitely look into the two paintings that I talked about earlier, the Aurora Borealis piece and the Tropical Beach. Okay, those are now I'm going to brighten up the color a bit. I'm going to go a little lighter by adding more white in here. And here we go. I'm going to start to also intensify some of these little waves, even though this has green in it. I'm looking over at my feet, everybody, making sure that we're good. And the reason I'm looking at the feet is because I'm seeing them. Not sure if I'm seeing a little bit of a glitch. So this light blue color I'm just adding it to these big waves that we created. We're going to come back and add more white over this. A little bit back here. It's a little too light, too intense. So move back to the front. Now here I'm also going to start to increase the colors and the reflection in the water. When you're all done with the painting, whether you finish today or tomorrow or the next day, please send me pictures of your results. I'd love to see them. If you guys have questions, I had a couple of you guys reach out and send me your pictures, kind of like your works in progress at the end of yesterday, and ask me for my opinion and for suggestions. You guys can do that too. You can send them here on the Painting with Jesse page to the Painting with Jesse page by messenger. And then if you're on YouTube, you can email me. Either one, paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. But again, everyone, the main thing is that you guys are enjoying the show. Having fun with this. Fantastic, Desiree. Love it. Love it. That is one thing. Unfortunately, painting takes time. Unless you're making, you can make little tiny pieces also, kind of break things down into, easier, small, or maybe you work in sections and little parts. But definitely, it takes time. Yeah, I lost my place here. Give me a second. Okay, continuing, same color. I'm just working with this lighter kind of greenish color, adding more details. Back to the middle again, same color. I haven't done anything different. So I'll add a little bit of this color to this wave here also. We'll intensify that, make it so we got some subtle differences, some changes in here in color. So could we have started with this color when we first created the peaks, right, where we kind of blocked out the waves? Absolutely, we could have. Painting them with white just made it, at least in my opinion, made them a little easier to look like waves. And so as a newer painter, it makes it easier for you to see the big picture. Okay, here's what we got so far. In just a moment, I'm going to start to add that white to the waves and to the reflection in the water to really make them stand out. What time do we have? Ooh, we're pushing it. Okay, and then I still got to show you guys those birds. So We might go a little bit over. Hope you guys are okay with that. And if not, you can always come back, right? If you're pressed for time, you can come back and paint with a recorded session. So a little bit of water, a little bit of white here with some water. Now my water is really blue. It's still diluted enough that when I mix it in with my white paint, it doesn't make a really big difference. And for this step of all of this, I'm okay with using it this way. Still using my little brush. Okay, and I'm going to start right up here. Start working my way down. Now this reflection is going to get really intense the more white you add. So you're going to be layering a bit. Okay, you let your layers dry a little, and then you come back and add some more paint on top of it. So I'm dabbing and moving left and right. Sometimes I get a little more paint on the brush, sometimes a little bit less. Go up into this wave a bit. Scooping up more white paint. It's getting thicker here towards the front, so I'm grabbing more of it. More intense also. I press down a little bit more on the brush as I move towards the front. Again, creating a bigger impact with the brush, a bigger footprint. But still, not every touch of the brush is going to be super thick. It just depends. I grab a little bit of water, throw it into my paint, I press down on that brush, and make this nice and skinny. So now I can make skinnier lines. So summer's ending. We're saying goodbye, farewell to summer with this piece today, right? September usually is when the turn starts to happen, where we start to get into more of the fall paintings, the holiday paintings. It's my favorite time of year. We got Thanksgiving here in the States. We got Thanksgiving. We've got Halloween first. Of course, Halloween is big. It's a really big one for me. I love it. Last year I did the 8 days of Halloween. I think it was supposed to be 10 days of Halloween. I was so pressed for time that it ended up being something like 8 days. I condensed it to 8 days, but still, it was a lot of fun. Lots of smaller paintings, 8 by 10 inch canvases, and that was so much fun to do. So, and then the year before that, I did the 3 days of Halloween, where we took one painting and broke it down into 3 sessions with glow in the dark paint and glow under black light paint. So we'll see what we do this year. Hopefully I've got time to do something really elaborate for Halloween. It's always just so much fun. And then, like I said, we got Thanksgiving, we got Christmas, we got New Year's, we got Day of the Dead for those of you that like the Day of the Dead stuff. Last year and the year before, I think I did the 3 days of Day of the Dead. Again, glow in the dark paint. And so anyway, needless to say, just a lot of fun stuff. And my eyes are getting a little bit tired. So as I mentioned yesterday, a lot of times when you're painting, you develop a little bit of tunnel vision and fatigue and stuff like that. So what I do normally, I take, and I'm not taking a break right now or anything. I'm not going to tell you guys I'll be back. Take little breaks. When you feel tired, it's good to take a little break because it refreshes your ability to see things that you're doing. Now I'm just working my way back, everyone, working my way back up through the painting and adding more details to the reflections in the water. So anyway, it's good to take little breaks. When you start to feel fatigued, when I first started painting, actually for years, I've been painting for about 20 years. And when I first started to paint, I would get tired and I would push through my painting. I would just continue. Sometimes I'd paint till 3, 4 in the morning, and I'd start like somewhere like around 8, 9, paint for hours. But when you do that, you start losing the ability to see some things. And I learned that the hard way. I would come back and look at my painting a day or two afterwards, and I'd go, "Oh my God, what the heck is that? How did I miss that?" Because you start to paint when the brain can no longer. I got my little girl's hair on my head or in my hat. She was wearing my hat earlier. Anyway, so yeah, it's good to take little breaks. If you're feeling tired at any point, if you're kind of, especially if you get really frustrated, you want to leave your painting alone. And I'm not saying quit. Another thing I learned, push through those difficult sessions. I'm not meaning that you paint tired. I mean that you go ahead, and even if you're not happy with something or you're struggling with something, that you work it and you come back to it and you experiment and eventually finish it. Just finish it. But anyway, taking little breaks in between is good for you. It helps you create better paintings. Okay, let's add some yellows in there, some yellows, some golds, reflect a little bit of that sunlight. Okay, I'm gonna grab a little bit of my, I'm gonna use the yellow, CAD yellow, put it on my paint palette. Okay, drink a little bit more of my coffee. The last of it. Got a bottle of water I'm gonna break out. I'm gonna lean back a little bit and look at what I've got. As I mentioned, it's good to take a little step back and look at your progress from a distance. I see some differences, mostly subtle little things that are different between the two pieces. And that's all okay. They work well enough. So we are going to be going over a little bit. Again, I hope everybody's okay with that. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my CAD orange. I'm going to mix some white in here. Okay, I'm also going to take, and I don't have to do this part of it. I'm going to take, but just to create a little bit of a change in color, I'm going to take a little bit of my burnt sienna, put it next to my yellow on the palette. I'm going to start with this. Okay, and I'm going to go really light touches. If that's too intense, I might have to bring it down a bit. Okay, I'm start adding these little highlights in here. Still using my tiny brush, my number 2. What's happening, Sherry? Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. He's one of my current membership members. Membership members. Our membership members, Sherry. Pretty awesome artist also. I'd like to add that. Cool person, awesome artist. All right, here we go. I added a little bit of water to my mixture. Okay, just a bit to thin things out so it's not too intense. And all I'm doing is this. Back and forth. Little dabs. Tina, are you still on here? I think you might have said, I think I might have seen you say goodbye earlier. There you are. Oh, good, Tina. Hanging out too, just listening and doing homework. Cool. Another one of my awesome members. Always good to have you guys on these lives with me on the Painting with Jesse page. All right, so just going through, adding these reflections in the water. And I'm going to bring some towards the center. And then over here, a little bit, coming out this way. If you're ever unsure of a color, let's say you're about to add a color to your canvas or your surface, and you're like, I'm not sure if this color is going to work. Go really lightly, find a little section and touch it. And, oh, is that going to work? If it doesn't work, it's easy to wipe off. Thanks, Tina. Yeah, Tina's saying she encourages anybody who's interested in the group, when I open up the doors, come join us. We have an awesome group in there. Lots of friendly people, super supportive, people of varying experience in there. I think most, if I had to categorize, most of the members are from beginner to intermediate. Some are a little past intermediate, but lots of super nice, friendly, supportive people. So if any of you are interested, come join us. Like I said, I'll be posting details. I'm going to try to get the details out this evening. I've got some stuff going on that I got to take care of. But if not, by tomorrow. So more white in this case. I'm just going to come right down the middle here and find some spots to really especially down the center. Make this really nice and dense. Try to. Gotta make sure that I stay down the middle. Because again, I'm painting over from an angle slightly. You guys see me reaching over, leaning over in my chair, and trying to keep this in front of the camera. So it tends to make my paintings a little bit, a little cockeyed. Kind of like they've been drinking a little too much. Yeah, I saw that, Tina, and I really appreciate that. That's okay. We have a smaller crowd today. A lot of people didn't get a chance to finish yesterday. Probably going to be painting with the recorded session, so it's a smaller crowd, and there's been less questions. Also, probably because lots of people are concentrated, or maybe we got a little bit of a shyer crowd today. But thank you for that. Definitely super appreciate it. It's hard to do both, teach and answer questions at the same time. Okay, so for now, I'm going to leave my water alone. I'm going to get into those birds. Then I'll look at the water again and decide if there's anything that I want to change before I call it a done session. Okay? The birds are going to be a mixture of black. Actually, it could be just black. But to reduce the intensity, I'm going to mix a little bit of my primary blue with my black. And for my black, of course, I'm using Mars Black today. But whatever black you have is fine. All I'm doing by mixing the color blue and black together, I'm reducing some of the intensity of the black. I could also even mix and pretty much any color. I could pick some of the orange in the background. It's just to minimize the harshness of the contrast of the black against the rest of the painting. If you were to look at a bird silhouette in the sky off in the distance, it may look black, but when you actually compare it to black, you're going to find that it's not quite black. It's like an off color, slightly washed out. So you could even make the case that there's a little bit of white in there to bring up the value a tiny bit. And we might add a touch. Actually, I'm lying. I'm actually using my primary blue, or ultramarine blue, sorry, and that's okay. So ultramarine blue, I'm using my little tiny brush, ultramarine blue and some black. I probably mix too much ultramarine in there. I'm actually going to take a smidge of white, a smidge. You're not going to see that much of a difference. It's going to turn into kind of a really, really deep gray. That's what I'm looking for. Black would be too harsh, too much contrast for my taste. But if you use just black, that's okay. The other thing I'm doing is I'm taking my brush, dipping it into my water, bringing that over here. Because I'm going to be drawing little tiny details, it helps me to add water to the mixture. I don't have to press as hard on the brush. So, birdies. I'm actually going to start at the top and work my way down. If I start with this bird, when I work on the ones on the top, I may smudge this one. So I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. I'm going to do my best to show you guys up close what I'm doing. It's going to be a little hard to hold the canvas and also paint, but I'm going to give it a go. Hopefully that coffee didn't make me jittery. And I'm going to throw on my readers, because these are some small details. First, let me also take a step back and assess what I've got. Again, some differences in the painting. I could flesh the highlights out a little. Don't look at it, Jesse. Look at it. Look at it after you're done with the birds. It'll be easier for me to assess. Okay, birds. Little bird up on top. Let me give you guys a close-up of the birds. There is not much to them. The magic disappears a little bit when we get up real close. All this is almost like an extended the letter M, but without the not less curve. Okay, this one's like the letter V. Okay, another letter M with a little bit of a thicker, see the little body of the bird in that case. Okay, we're closer. But you don't need a lot of detail on these birds to make them look like birds. Okay, so there's that. Here we go. Bird up on top. There's a little guy right there. Here we're going to start. I'm using my number 0, little 0 liner brush or round brush, little detail brush. There we go. So where am I going to put this guy? I'll put him right here. Let's see. Over to the left. Start with a little. There we go. Bird number one. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you so much. Right, little tiny details in that bird. Nothing fancy. The next bird. I'm going to move over to the right. Up in this area. Same thing. Kind of this one's a little bit of a letter V. We'll start with that. Okay, kind of like this. We'll make it more prominent. Or the point in the body. Now, the little guy needs some wings, so let's give him some wings. There you go, like this. Okay, and if you see that I'm struggling a little bit with the paint, it's not flowing, that means a little bit more, I need a little bit more water in that paint. Okay, so let's dip. That's what I'm going to do. I'll take my brush, I'll dip in my water cup, bring it over. Also, it also indicates, might be more of an indicator that my studio's hot. The wind from the fan is drying my paint up a little faster, even though I've got a paint palette thing. Now, if I had my little mister, I would just spray the top of this with the mister, and that would go a long way to keep that from happening. So that water does this. It makes me able to do something like that. Well, you'll see here easier on this next bird. This next bird's going to go right here. And I'm going to go. This one's going to have a little bit of a. We'll start with kind of the body like that. It's going to have a little wing that goes up from the side. Kind of like that. And then we're going to go. Okay. Again, nothing fancy. For all intents and purposes, these birds look black, right, against that sky. But again, I mixed some blue in it and a little tiny bit of white. All right, where are we going next? Next bird, right here. This one has wings that are a little bit more spread open. I'll put this guy right about here. He's also a little larger because he's closer to the foreground. Now, if you don't have one of these little skinny brushes, it will make your life easier. So I definitely recommend picking some of these up. These little brushes, these little detail brushes are awesome. Okay, next bird. I know we got that big bird right about here somewhere, so I want to make room for that. We're going to put a bird right here. Right there, right about here. And again, we can start with slight V shape. And we're just going to go. Oops. For something like this, a lot of times I get really close, and I also hold the brush really tight to the tip. Gives me more control. And then other times I'll have it on my lap like this. I'll hold it like this in front of me. Can you see me? Like this. And I'll just, okay. A little more control. All right, next bird. This little guy. This guy's just kind of very subtle. Remember, everyone. Excuse me. My voice is starting to kind of get a little shot, a little tired. You're all going to turn out with something a little different. Do not stress or try to minimize your stress. Try to increase the enjoyment factor, because then it's more likely that you're going to paint again and you're going to pursue this. If this is something that you like, that you want to get better at, it's about practice, 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 practice. The biggest thing I'll tell you is there's two things. Practice, paint often as you can, and experimentation. Try different things. Don't be afraid to experiment. People are afraid to make mistakes. Those mistakes, while they can be frustrating, those are the ones that help you learn, because through those mistakes you realize what works and what doesn't. Okay, so little bird up on top, this little tiny guy way back in the distance, so we got to be really careful. Dainty little guy. Not quite the same shape as the original, but that's all right. It still works. Okay, I'm gonna go and make, let's see, I'm gonna go up here. The one with the kind of wings turned upwards. So up close, they may not look like much, but when you back away, they look like birds, right? That's what we're looking for. It's illusion. So all painting is illusion. Okay, we're gonna go here. I'm gonna pick it up now. Okay, hold on. Let me add more water to my paint. Sounds good, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you enjoyed. And come on back and paint with us again. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do this one here over to the side. You guys get the picture. So pretty basic. And then the big bird right over here. I'm going to just do it and then give you guys a close-up. He's the big guy, the big guy front and center. Okay, we start with that. Gracias, Liliana. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Also, yesterday I mentioned that I would go and cover, if I had time. There was time. Got about 10 minutes to spare. Hopefully you guys do too, and if not, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and add another layer of primary blue paint to that sky. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. I think it's a really nice way to enhance the painting if you guys got a little time to do this. If not, it's okay. Take a look at your water. In a second, I'll take a look at mine and see where I am. I think I'm pretty much done with the water, but I'll look at it again in a moment. I'm sure if I was to come back and look at it in a few hours or tomorrow, I'd go, oh, you need to add some of this or some of that. There are differences in there. I know they're not exactly the same. Again, that was not the intention. The original's a little bit more detailed in the water, a little bit more. So, but it'd be easier for me to pick up those subtle differences with a fresh fresh brain. Laura, really easy. So if you don't like a bird, let's say you painted a bird, great question. Now you want to do this, it's a lot easier to do it when your paint is still fresh. Your background should be nice and dry. If you did it yesterday, you would take a paper towel, dip it in your water. Now I would do fresh water. Dip it in your water and then rub right over the bird, lightly at first, lightly, and it's going to remove it. As long as it's brand new paint, you just laid it down, it's going to be easy for it to come off. Water, light pressure, don't press too hard. Adjust the pressure as needed, okay? If you're sitting there and you're rubbing and it's coming off easily, stay really light till it's gone. And then keep turning the towel. So you're going like this, turn it, do it again. Find clean areas to do it with so you remove all of that paint from the canvas. Okay, that's how you would do that. I would demonstrate here, but just in case things don't go right, I don't want to remove any paint from the background. You shouldn't, because you painted the background yesterday. If you did it yesterday, I don't want to assume, but if you did, then that paint would come off. Okay, no problem. The background paint would not come off. So here we go, and that's the only danger there, is that the paint from the background would come off as well. So here's what I'm doing. Taking some primary blue paint, some white paint, mixing it together. I want something that's maybe a little bit lighter than my original, just to have a nice, pretty little impact there. Okay, and I want to mix plenty of it. Don't forget, when you're done, send me pictures of your painting. Send it to the Painting with Jesse page, or via email to the Painting with Jesse at gmail.com. paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. Okay, so now a little bit of water. Blend this in nicely, make it nice and thin, and here we go. So I'm going to start here. So you would do this if you wanted to correct some of the shapes around your clouds, if you wanted to minimize them. But beyond that, it creates a really kind of a cool little effect where you're painting around. Now you would do this. I apologize. Let me before you start this. I'm hoping none of you started this already. You would do this before the birds. Okay, before your birds. I apologize about that. If you started your birds and you wanted to do this, you can still do it, but it's easier if you do it before your birds. My apologies. Hopefully nobody's upset at me. But it's a cool little switch. It's not anything that's super noticeable right off the bat. It takes a little bit, once it's dried, makes it a bit more white in there. I want it to be a little bit lighter. It might have gone a little too high. But it just adds a little pop of difference in color. And it can create kind of a cool effect. As it dries, it's going to get a little bit darker. Acrylic paint, generally, most acrylic paint does, changes color as it dries, gets a little bit darker. But the color is so similar that the difference is pretty subtle. Okay, what I'm going to do here, this is kind of what I was talking about. I can use this to bring this color from the sky down a little bit into the clouds, into the orange area. Creating more blue in your sky, which can be kind of cool. But again, that's a personal choice, right? Maybe you want more. Who was it yesterday? Was it Laura? Was it you, Laura, that asked me about an orange, I think all orange sky? Did you do that, by the way? So again, this just adds a little extra element. Your color, if you're doing this, the color that you're adding should be almost the same as the original. Slightly lighter would probably be a nicer option. And again, if your clouds were too large, I'm not doing it much because my clouds are good size. But if I wanted to, I could squeeze them in. Oh, good. Good, Laura. Fantastic. Yep. That works. You see that? Awesome. Glad it worked for you. Now, if you would have waited too long, let's say if you would have waited till it was really dry, then that's a lot harder to do. You could still fix it, but it takes a lot more steps. And sometimes you have to paint the whole sky again just to fix that. It just depends. There's different ways you can go about fixing a painting, but usually on something like that, you want to jump on it right away. It's just a lot easier to do so. So glad it worked. Okay. So here where the oranges are, just come down a little bit. All right. We take a step back, look at everything from a distance, and we decide, do we like it? Are we happy with it? Do we need to make some changes? And again, I am seeing some little things in the water that I would address. Like in here, I got little tiny subtle details that I don't have in here. Maybe back in the background also, little tiny touches of those colors that we did in the front that would impact that and make it a little bit more realistic. Maybe add a little more density up here. Also a little more density with my white. It's a little bit top heavy to the right, a little bit heavy to the right, and I need to make it a little heavier to the left to balance it out. Okay, they're not big deals, but they make little tiny differences that take your painting up a notch in level and quality. And I can see it more in the picture. So on the monitor, I can see it, what I was talking about, the reflection. You guys can see it better. From my angle, it's harder to see. But in the picture where it's straight on the monitor, I can see it. But it's slightly, the one in the original is pretty straight down the middle. The one on the left is slightly over to the right. And again, I would fix that by just bringing more highlights over to this side to level it out. And then those detail things are minor. All of that stuff is minor, but they impact a painting enough to raise the quality level. And that's kind of what you want. Another thing, maybe I would add a little more yellow in here. I like the vibrancy in both paintings. There's subtle differences in the sky that I like in both. And so, again, those are all decisions that you kind of would make. But at this point, I would leave it alone, come back and look at it tomorrow, a few hours from now, or what have you, and it's easier to pick up those little subtle things that you would change. All right. Anyway, everybody, the last thing to do, and I'm not going to do it here, it's to sign your piece when you're all done. I didn't sign the original. I noticed that a couple of days ago. But I would sign the piece and hang it up on my wall. Frame it and hang it up on my wall. Before you do that, take a picture and send it to me on Messenger or on the Painting with Jesse page. Okay? So, but anyhow, everybody, don't forget to, if you're not signed up to the email list, please do so. Okay? It's the easiest way to keep in touch with me and to kind of stay on top of everything that I offer here on the Painting with Jesse page. And yeah, look for my announcements that I'm going to be posting pretty soon here regarding the other stuff that's coming over the next few weeks. So please be on the lookout for that. And also, if you don't already, follow the page, like the page. Okay. But awesome, Pamela. Can't wait to see it. But yeah, and if you guys have any questions about anything, please reach out. More than happy to help where I can. I'm a pretty busy guy, but you know, I love interacting with the followers of the page. Back when there was more time, I used to get lots of people messaging me, especially during COVID when everybody was home, like I mentioned. You know, I'd love to interact and say, hey, oh yeah, here's a little tip on that, or here's what I do. Here's the canvases that I use. This is the paint that I use. But it's not so easy anymore. You know, everybody's got really busy lives, but still, if you guys have some questions about stuff, please reach out. Okay. So yeah, so Pamela, great question. Great question. Pamela asked, would you paint the edges? So I used to always paint the edges on my canvases, on my paintings, because often I give them away and a lot of people didn't want to frame them. They would just want to hang them up as is. If you're planning on hanging up your paintings, it is a good idea to paint your edges so you don't have this unfinished look. So, and there are options to that. You could paint the edges to match what's on the front. So for example, you would paint blue around the side here and then orange here, orange yellow for this, and then you go to a light blue, paint around to match, or you paint in all one solid color. Okay. I like the painted look. Um, so, and usually when I'm planning on painting the edges of the painting, I paint them as I'm painting the piece. So as I painted the background, I would have added the color to the edges. As I'm painting the water, I add that color to the edges. But you can always do it after the fact. Okay? A great question, because yes, absolutely. If you're planning on hanging your piece without a frame, it makes it look a little nicer. This has an unfinished quality to it, and when it goes up on a wall, it draws attention from the painting. If you paint your edges, it just looks like all one finished piece, and it's prettier to look at, I think. Okay, but yeah, general rule of thumb: paint your edges. I sometimes to waste less time, I don't paint the edges during my lives. Sometimes I do. I used to always, like I said. But yeah, I like to do it. Normally speaking, I would paint those edges. Okay. A great question, Pamela. Anybody else? You got me on for about another maybe 3 to 5 minutes. How about that? Ask me anything about painting. What would you guys like to know? Yes, gold metallic would be cool. So yeah, you could do that. You could pick a different color, kind of a finisher color, and use gold metallic around the edges. That could be kind of cool, where you throw color out into the piece that isn't on the actual painting, but it kind of works well together. That would work. Frames the piece nicely. Great suggestion, Melissa. Again, everybody, I really recommend the experimental nature of painting. It's how I learned. I didn't go and learn somewhere. I've always been an artist since I was really young. I've been drawing since I was a really little kid. It's what I just really loved doing. But I always wanted to learn to paint. Even when I was really small, I would look at paintings and go, I want to do that. And then when I started, I just kind of started experimenting, picked up a couple of books on the subject and just kind of briefly read through them. And I'm like, okay, I get the gist. And then I started. And then you learn as you go. But experimentation is a really big part of it, okay? You know what, Laura? I worked when I first started painting. I started with oil, and I love oil. Oil is beautiful, but it's beautiful. It's in some ways easier to work with because it doesn't dry so quickly. It's messier, it's smellier, right? But it's got its advantages and disadvantages. Acrylic paint dries very quickly. It's a little less forgiving because you've got to work within the time frame. If something dries enough, it's hard to remove it from the canvas. Whereas with oil paint, it takes a really long time to dry. So if you don't like what you've got, you can scrape it off and start over. But I like them both. I really, really like them both. Both really just awesome mediums. Lately, over the past probably, let's say 7 years, I've been painting a lot more with acrylic and very seldom with oil, simply because of the painting with Jesse Page and my business. It's mostly about acrylic painting. But oh yeah, the more I'm looking at the original and the new one, as I'm not looking at it, I see little differences that my brain goes, you want to fix those. Little small details. Again, they're not big details. They're not this. If I didn't have the original next to it, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty good looking water. It's not, amazing, but it's pretty good. But when I look at it compared to the original, I'm like, oh, those little subtle differences, these darker areas, like in here. In this area, I have more little subtle touches, more variation. Up in here also, little highlights that I don't have over here. Highlights in different colors. Okay, so just throwing that out there so that you guys know that as I'm sitting here talking, my brain is refreshing. I'm not looking at that painting anymore. I look over and I'm like, oh, start to pick up on this. So there's the there's the reason why you want to leave your painting alone for a while and then come back to it. But yeah, definitely oil painting can be messy. Okay. What else? Anybody else have anything else for me? You guys got me for about 2 minutes. Glad you liked it, Melissa. Absolutely glad you liked it. What else? I'm just scrolling back to see if anybody might have made a comment or asked questions or something like that, and I missed it. All right, I think that's it, everyone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me. Hope you all enjoyed this, and I know it wasn't easy. Trust me when I tell you guys that, and everybody's different. Some of you maybe didn't struggle much, others struggled more. Maybe some of you struggled with the clouds. Some of you struggled with the water. It really varies. I know it wasn't easy. Keep that in mind. It wasn't meant to be an easy theme, but here we are at the end of the session. Okay, but thank you guys. Thank you so much, Tina. My pleasure, Liliana. You're welcome. Very, very welcome. Then nada. Then Marnie says, I just got home. I love your painting for the second time. Thank you, Marnie. All right, everyone. Shirley Zellman, you're very welcome. All right, everyone. Keep in touch. Keep on the lookout for my posts. I'll be posting some stuff. I think I'll be posting some stuff later today, if not tomorrow for sure. Okay. I'm working on the calendar for my membership group, and that's usually the most intense part of my month. I'm almost done with it. I just got to put it together now. I've got all the paintings and everything set up, so I'll be working on that for the rest of the evening, peeking into the Facebook page from time to time. But all right, everybody, thank you. I will talk to you all very soon. Let's see. You will, Marnie. I hope. Well, I hope you have, as long as you've got the time, because these sessions are available to you to paint with a recorded session. Sophie, my pleasure. Thank you for joining. All right, everybody on YouTube. Dorothy Perret says, thank you. You got it, Dorothy. My pleasure. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening or day. If some of you have already started your day. I think Australia is daytime right now. I think. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.